Today we're going to talk about variables on both sides. So in the example, Hannah needs to solve the following problem: 4a minus 6 equals negative 2a plus 18. How is the problem different from other equations you have seen before? What would the first step of the problem be? And can we combine like terms? So when an equation has variables on each side of the equation, you must use inverse operations to move the variables over to the left or to the right. Once there's one variable and one constant, you can begin solving the equation. And that's important. One variable, one constant. So for example, it is an equation. So we're going to draw our line. So you notice how the variables are on different sides of the line. So I'm going to take my negative 2a and use the inverse operation and say plus 2a to cancel it out on this side and move it to the right side. Now I have like terms. I can combine these like terms. 4a plus 2a is 6a. Bring everything else down. Now you have a two-step equation, and you're doing just like you normally do. You want to combine your constants, so you need to move your negative 6 to the right side of the equal sign by adding 6. So now you get 6a equals 24. Divide each side by 6, and you get a equals 4. You are able to check this just like every other equation. So you write down the original problem. Now you're going to write down the original problem again, but instead of your a's, each of your a's are represented by 4 because that's what you solved. So 4 times 4 is 16. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Remember, GEMDAS states that we want to multiply before we add or subtract. 16 minus 6 is 10. Negative 8 plus 18 is 10. So since you were able to get 10 equals 10, so the same number equals the same number, you know that what you did in your equation was correct. So 4a equals 4 is your answer. So let's try the odds together, and then you'll do the evens. So in our first example, you notice you have 7a on the left side of the equal sign, 3a on the right side of the equal sign. So I'm going to take my 3a, it is positive, so I'm going to take the inverse and subtract on each side. 7a minus 3a are like terms to give me 4a. Bring everything else down. Now it's a one-step equation. 4 times a, take the inverse operation and divide each side by 4. So a equals 5. And again, check your answer. You're going to be expected to check your answer. Write down the original problem. Write down the original problem again, but instead of your a's, you're going to substitute with what you got as a result, which in this case is a 5. 7 times 5 is 35. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 20 is 35. Do not stop on this step here. Okay, you must get to the reflexive property step where it is a number equals a number. In problem 3, I'm going to draw my line. Now I'm actually going to move my 5m to my right side, because I like to keep my variable positive. So if I have a positive 5 here, I'm going to use the inverse operation and subtract 5. Bring everything else down. So you have a negative 18 equals 6m minus 5m is a positive 1m plus 4. Now I can take my positive 4, take the inverse operation, and move it to the left side. And the reason now that I'm moving my 4 instead of my negative 18 is because you want your variables on one side of the equal sign, and then your constants need to be on the opposite side of the equal sign. So it does not matter which way you move your numbers and variables as long as they are on opposite sides of the equal sign and you have moved them with the correct sign. So you have negative 22 equals m. So now you can go and check your answer. Again, write down your original problem, and then you're going to substitute what you got in for m. So when I go to write this, 5 times negative 22 minus 18 equals 6 times negative 22 plus 4. So when you go to solve this, you get 5 times negative 22 is 110, negative 110, minus 18. 6 times 22 is going to give you this negative 132 plus 4. And then negative 110 minus 18, you have same signs, so you add to get negative 128. And negative 132 plus 4, they're different signs, so you subtract. Take the sign of the larger number, so you get negative 128. So you know that you got the correct answer. So there should be no reason on multi-step equations why you are not able to get the right answer. Pause the video and try number 5. Hopefully you were able to move the 2m to the left side and then the negative 14 to the right side. Divide by 4 and get m equals 5. Once you checked your step, you should have gotten 16 equals 16 for your reflexive property there at the end. So then on number 7, let's do the same thing. Pause the video and try number 7. And number 7, remember, once you subtract that 6b to the left side, you don't need to notate that this is 1b. Your algebra teachers are not going to want that. And then you add 3 and you get b equals 0. That is okay that you get b equals 0. Make sure you wrote your check step. If you didn't write your check step, you're not going to be able to get full credit. Go ahead and pause the video and work on your even problems. Check your answers with the following problems. Ask your teacher if you have any questions. Reviewing number 2, that is okay if you get fraction as an answer. You guys are able to add and subtract fractions and do all the operations with them. It's okay that we got 1/2 as an answer. Now let's turn the page to page 15. So now we're going to take this a step further, and we're not only going to have variables on both sides, or VBS, but we're going to have to also combine like terms. So you need to clean up each side of the equal sign to one term with a variable, one term with a constant prior to being able to move things around. So step 1 states combine like terms on the left. Step 2, combine like terms on the right. Step 3, move your variables to the left, or told you it's okay if you move them to the right. Then solve. So here's your example. 8x minus 35 So you notice how there's one term with a variable, one constant. So that's simplified. There's nothing that you can combine. However, on the right side, you have a 5 and a positive 10. So you need to bring down your left side. Now combine your 5 plus 10 to give you 15. Now the problem has been cleaned up and you can move things around. I'm going to move my positive 8x. I'm going to subtract it to the right side. Bring down my negative 35. 18x minus 8x is 10x plus 15. Now you can bring your constants over to the left. It is a positive 15, so you subtract 15. Remember, what you do on one side, you have to do on the other. Negative 35 minus 15 is negative 50. Divide each side by 10 to get a final answer of negative 5. And again, you can check your answer for these, and you're going to be required to. So you write down your equation and substitute what you got in for x. So instead of 8x, I'm going to write 8 times negative 5. Use your parentheses. Equals minus 35 equals 18 times negative 5 plus 15. So when I go to solve this, or simplify, 8 times negative 5 is negative 40 minus 35. 18 times negative 5 is negative 90 plus 15. Negative 40 minus 35, same signs, you add and keep the sign. Negative 90 plus 15, different signs, you subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So you got your reflexive property of a number equals a number, the same number. So since negative 75 equals negative 75, you know you did your work correct. Let's do a few more examples. We're going to do the first two together and then you'll finish the page. So in problem 1, I'm going to draw my line and you want to look at the left side of the equation. Is there anything that you can combine? No, there is not. So let's look at the right side. Is there anything you can combine? Yes, a positive 10 and a positive 5. So when I combine them, I get 7a minus 5 equals 3a plus 15. I'm going to move my variable first, and I'm going to move my positive 3a by subtracting 3a to each side of the equal sign and bring down all my remaining terms. So you get 4a minus 5 equals 15. Now I'm going to move my constant by adding 5 to each side of the equal sign. And then you want to divide each side by 4 to give you a equals 5. On your check step, rewrite the original problem and substitute what you got in for a, which is 5. And simplify all the way down. 7 times 5 is 35 minus 5. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 15. So you will get 30 equals 30. Since you got the reflexive property of 30 equals 30, then you know you did this right. Now let's try the second problem. Draw your line. Look at the left side. Is there anything that you need to clean up? No, there is not. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down. Look at the right side. Is there anything that you need to combine? Yes, there is. A positive 5y and a negative 2y. 5 minus 2 is 3y minus 10. Now, since there's nothing else that you can combine, we're going to start moving things. You could move your 3y by subtracting it over. Since my negative 5y, since that's negative, I'm going to actually move my y variable to the right side. You can go either way as long as you use the correct signs. So here now I have an 8y, and I get to add 10 to the left side to give me 16 equals 8y. So I'm going to divide each side by 8 to get y equals 2. You notice how my work goes straight down, except for here where I had to write this off to the side, and it's not all over the place. Work your check step. Write down the original problem, and then substitute what you got in for y when you go to solve. So negative 5 times 2 plus 6, 3 times 2 minus 10. So negative 10 plus 6 is negative 4. 6 minus 10 is negative 4. So because your check step worked out correct, you know your answer is correct. Again, there should be no reason why you're not getting the right answers. Go ahead and pause the video, finish out this page, and then ask your teacher if you have any questions. Check your answers with the following problems. Remember, you will also have to include your check step. If you have any questions, ask your teacher.